Hey there, it's Dr. Jim. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate it. A lot on my mind, a lot of things going on in the economy, in the job market. Finding employees is really rough right now. Retaining them, keeping employees happy. These are all things that we're dealing with not only in healthcare, senior care, but everywhere. Every industry, I think, is really struggling. You know, when you can't find pilots to fly planes, these are some interesting times. So I sat down, as I always do, with a mug of David Bowie coffee. Everything is better in a David Bowie mug. So the title of this video, and I have an article on the same topic, is Bouncing Back from the Great Resignation. Have you ever heard those words, the Great Resignation, like the big resign? People walking out, quitting their jobs by the millions. Okay, so that's something that was in part, it was affected by COVID-19. You know, lots of people left their jobs, they worked from home, they used technology, a lot just quit. They quit out of fear of contagion, or they went home to take care of their family, or whatever the case is. But a lot of people really overemphasize the causation of COVID-19 and its impact on the Great Resignation. So I did some research because I would like to debunk that. It's not 100% the case. Starting back in 2009, more and more employees were quitting their jobs, and for a number of reasons. Some were retiring. If you look at the average age of RNs, for instance, there's a wave of them ready to retire. We might be in trouble. I think we already do have a nursing shortage, but it might be getting worse. Maybe they relocated somewhere else. Other people really began to think about their work-life balance. Am I working so hard, so many hours, that I'm not even enjoying life? So this has affected every industry, every market, job market around the country. I think it's happened elsewhere around the world. And then came the pandemic 10 years later. So this trend of the Great Resignation, people walking off their jobs, taking a serious look at their work-life balance, began in 2009. 10 years later, in 2019, here comes COVID-19, which just was a factor that pushed this Great Resignation in larger numbers. So the Great Resignation began a while ago, over a decade ago. It was also called the Big Quit, the Great Resignation. Record numbers voluntarily left their positions. In fact, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, this is shocking, more than 47 million people quit their jobs in 2021 alone. That was a shocking statistic to me. I knew the numbers were big, but wow, they're big, okay? How is it impacting today's job market? If you're a nursing home owner, operator, CEO, CFO, COO, if you're a nursing home, executive director, this is really impacting you. If you're a hospital administrator, if you're an owner of a hospice company, a home health care agency, it's really tough to find employees. But employees leaving their jobs is nothing new, but this was truly an unprecedented event. It was a tidal wave of people leaving. Started over a decade ago, and we're still feeling the effects now. So worker shortages, difficulty recruiting and retaining new employees, and overworked staff, overworked managers, supervisors are causing a multitude of problems. So the pandemic gave pause. It had a lot of effects on us, but it really gave pause for millions of Americans to think about their lives, the quality of their lives, their work, how they want to spend their time, and they thought about their priorities. And there's a big shift that has occurred. According to the Harvard Business Review, quote, "We're now back in line with the pre-pandemic trend, which is one that American employers are likely to become or to be contending with for years to come." And in the same article, there was a really good thing called the 5 R's. The pandemic also created what Harvard Business Review calls the 5 R's, or the 5 factors that they were exacerbated by the pandemic. Retirement was a big one. And I could tell you from my personal experience, shortly after the pandemic numbers started coming down, I got out there live. My gig is speaking live. I'm addicted to speaking to people live in front of an audience. And so I got out there and I held a CEU, interesting topic, so on and so forth. And a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of folks I know in the business showed up. And one nurse in particular, I know her, and she's been to hundreds of my speaking events. And I said, "Hey, how are you? My gosh, I haven't seen you for 2 years." We all talked like that after seeing people we haven't seen because of the pandemic. And she goes, "Oh, life is great. I retired early." "Really?" And she goes, "Yep. I had a few more years to go, but this pandemic really burned me out. I saw too much death and too much sadness, and I said, something is telling me that it's time to hang it up." So a lot of people have retired. Relocation around their state, around their county even, and sometimes across the country. But people have relocated because of the pandemic. Reconsideration. What's important to me? What's important to my life and my family? I talked to a fellow not too long ago who said, "I have to change things up. I'm not watching my kids grow up. And I don't want that." So he changed his job, changed his lifestyle, and the pandemic was that push factor that actually did it. Reshuffling, going in and out of different job markets, industries, working from home, going into another line of business or a job where you can, if you have the luxury of doing so. And then there is reluctance as the last of the 5 R's. And reluctance is, hell no, I'm not going back. I'm not going back to that place. I wasn't happy. And maybe people were afraid of the virus, or they had low job satisfaction, and they were just reluctant to go back, and they never did. So a big takeaway from this rambling of mine today is communicate what your employees really want. Communicate with them about what they really need. There's no time to spare. You really have to know your employees. And when you're hiring, some of my questions would be, why do you want to work here? What is it in you or about your personality that has brought you here? What is important in your life outside of this building? Should you become an employee here? What do you really want? What do you really need? And you might hear things like flexibility or, some extra time off here and then, or, if I have emergencies, please don't penalize me, or whatever the case is. There's an old saying, you attract more bees with honey than you do with vinegar, right? And I got to tell you, we really need to start doing that now. People want flexibility, well-being, mental well-being, physical well-being. Those are big. They really are. Purpose. Competitive pay is always important. Good working conditions, a happy work environment. Even if it's a rough job, make it as happy as you can. And then skills development. People want to know, hey, I could be taught different skills. I can grow in this company. I can be promoted in this company. Be the employee-centered workplace. Make sure your community knows. In my business, our employees come first. They are our most precious commodity. They are the most important thing, because without them, we're not going to deliver great care. We're not going to provide great services. Okay? We're not going to build great things together. And forget business as usual. Sometimes I hear leaders in the industry say, well, now that the pandemic's mainly over, completely over, whatever, let's get back to normal. Let's get back to business as usual. Forget it. Too many things have changed. You have to be flexible. You've got to go with the flow. You have to know what people want and what people need. Okay? You don't want to hire a bunch of fresh-faced new talent and go back to the old ways of doing things if those ways were not working, right? So here are my final thoughts. The job market was changing a while ago. Actually, a whole decade before the pandemic, or slightly more. The pandemic came along and it did make everything worse, including high turnover, recruitment, nightmares, stress, strain, burnout on your existing staff. It did a lot. Now that we seem to be settling back into, let's call it a pre-pandemic period, much has already changed, and things will not be the same as they were before. Younger and older workers and employees have retired, they've relocated, they've reconsidered, they've made career changes, they've done a lot of things. You have to be the one that says, our employees come first, and by doing that, you sit down and you talk to them and you learn about what they want, you learn about what they need, and you become the employer that people want. I'm Dr. Jim. I'm going to stop rambling now. Keep coming back for David Bowie coffee. This is Ziggy Stardust, by the way. Everything is better in a David Bowie coffee mug. See you soon. Well, I certainly hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much for your time. If you'd like more information about a great online learning management system with the most wonderful support, best in class support and partnering, please look for the link to the website in the description. You'll love what you see.